We are back here on Newswire. Adam Kaufman with you, and Vinny Iyer joins us here, also from Sporting News on Twitter at Vinny Iyer. Vinny, it's good to see you. It's hard to believe that we are only a couple months and change away from the NFL draft. I mean, the season obviously just ended. If you're a Patriots fan, a Seahawks fan, you almost kind of, I don't know, like shake your head at how quickly some of this stuff moves here. But the draft is coming, and I want to start with you. We'll get into obviously your big board and your top players across the board. But I want to start specifically at the quarterback position because most assume that Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman winner, the champion out of Indiana, it's a foregone conclusion. This guy is the number one pick going to the Raiders and replacing Geno Smith to become that team's franchise QB. Is it that clear for you? Is there any chance this team goes in a different direction?
I think if they went in a different direction, it would have to involve a team being aggressive to trade up for that pick, because it definitely could happen here because you don't have a lot of valuable quarterbacks near the top. Ty Simpson, immediately, the next guy on the board, you have a lot of question marks with the way things ended, the way he played, his overall upside for the NFL. So immediately there's a question at the next quarterback. It's not a very good class. Everyone is looking more at next year's class. So, yeah, the Raiders could try to get a good offer and move down from there. But if they stay there, I don't think you can miss that shot at the potential franchise quarterback. This team has struggled quite a bit to find somebody they want since they had Derek Carr playing somewhat well. I mean, he was never the top in the league, but he was a guy that they could at least pay a second contract to and keep around for a while and win some games with. So, look, you can't blow this. I mean, they've been cycling through Aiden O'Connell and Geno Smith. They can't go out there and say, we're just going to be happy with what we have at quarterback. But unless they get a good offer with multiple picks, and that's what it's going to take, as it always does with the number one overall pick, I think they have to stay there and take the quarterback. I think he's also a good fit for what they want to do in the new offense of Clint Kubiak.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further, Vinny. This is a terrible QB class. Again, you have Mendoza at number one, conceivably, and then you have Ty Simpson, who you mentioned, who is probably going to be on, late anyway, into the 20s potentially in terms of his draft position. You scan the board. We're so used to, you know, 5, 6 QBs potentially going in round one. I don't think anyone is overdrafting, Garrett Nussmeier or Trinidad Chambliss or Cade Klubnik, certainly not Carson Beck. These are day 2, day 3 even guys, maybe mostly day 2, but even still, they're not day 1. They're not going in round 1, any of these dudes after Simpson, I wouldn't think. So I don't know. Does desperation step in to where you feel like if you are in the Raiders position or even a team that needs a QB that could strongly consider someone like Ty Simpson, do you have to act, or are you willing as a franchise to just take another position of need and take a step back and say, like you said, next year's just better for us?
Yeah, you also have to look at where you are right now. I mean, you look at a classic example. We had a few years ago the Bryce Young, Caleb Williams thing, right? If the Panthers had kind of not made that move, they'd probably have Caleb Williams. The Bears would have Bryce Young or something like that would have happened, right? And the Panthers would have had a better feeling going forward over the next 10 years. I know both teams are playoff teams, but I think you can safely say you'd rather have Caleb Williams. So you got to be careful about what you do. You can't force it. The Steelers forced it a few years ago in the first round with Kenny Pickett. It was not a very good draft class with Malik Willis and all the options that they had in that class. So again, forcing it puts you back more, I think. So make sure you're confident that guy can be a big winner for your team. Look, it's worked out for most of the teams just a couple of years ago with Williams and Daniels and Drake May and Bo Nix, but then you have J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr., who haven't worked out. So, look, I think you just have to be careful. Don't force the issue, but the Raiders so need a quarterback, and if they pass on Mendoza, I think they have to get compensation, at least from the Jets picking behind them. They need something to make that move, or they got to take the quarterback.
Anyone who hasn't seen it, Vinny wrote a thorough, real deep dive into his top 120 in the upcoming draft, available for you on the Sporting News website. Let's look at your top 7, however, which of course only features the one QB, but after that, sprinkling the board and a lot of defensive players, basically all defensive players, or at least a strong mix anyway. You have Reuben Bain Jr. at edge, Caleb Downs, the safety, Arvell Reese, linebacker, Jeremiah Love, running back, and I mean, a running back at top five. You know, you're hoping for a transcendent talent at that point. Jordan Tyson is a wide receiver, and of course, back at edge, David Bailey. What's your process in terms of ranking these guys that way?
Yeah, I think if you look at those positions, I think some of the impact is what we just saw on the field. I mean, there's no doubt Fernando Mendoza and Reuben Bain really gave us a lot to think about when they made those playoff runs with Indiana and Miami, respectively. You saw what kind of levels they were and playing against the biggest competition. That's kind of a nice little extra bonus you get in the scouting process right near the end of the career. How do they do well in those clutch moments of those biggest opponents and do it in multiple games? So I think you saw that with both those guys. Now, with Caleb Downs and Arvell Reese, take your pick. They slightly are different in terms of their position, but they can still make a lot of plays for defense. They're hybrid guys that the NFL really covets. You can just put them in different places, linebacker, safety, and get some big plays. So I think you start there. In the offensive tackle, I think it's another strong class for that. You're getting more and more guys that could fill into the back half. And then wide receiver is pretty deep as well. Jordan Tyson, look, it could be Carnell Tate, it could be Makai Lemon, it could be a few guys really emerging as that top wide receiver. But I think the interesting guy, of course, when we ever see a running back, Jeremiah Love, where we go with the Chiefs, for example, take a shot at him. So I'm really intrigued to see what team is ready to pull the trigger on running back, because you can say, look, Bijan Robinson, Jameer Gibbs, they've worked out pretty well for these teams picking early.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually he saw it with Saquon when he got on the right team, and Christian McCaffrey's been doing it throughout his career. So sometimes these special backs are hard to ignore, and they can have a big impact on your team.
Yeah, we'll find out in due time if Ashton Genty, for instance, is one of those guys. Not so
Yeah.
much in his rookie year, but he's young. Now, in terms of who has the most to work with, however, the Jets, you're looking at a dozen total picks coming up here, 2 in the top 16. The Raiders, we mentioned, have the number 1 pick, plus another maybe 9 or 10. The Browns, couple of first rounders, 10 picks gives them elite capital. Steelers, who still need to figure out their QB position, you would think Aaron Rodgers makes sense in a Mike McCarthy reunion, 5 picks in the top 100. And the Patriots, again, coming off of an unlikely Super Bowl appearance, 10 or 11 picks, depending on how everything shakes out with compensatory picks and whatnot. And so, is there a team that you think is positioned the best to really make an impact if it does draft well?
Yeah, I think you just have to look at, are they okay at quarterback? And if they are, then that kind of opens things up, right? If you need a quarterback in this draft, we just talked about it, unless you're picking number 1, you're a little bit out of luck. So then you have to look elsewhere. What positions can be boosted around the quarterback? So I'm looking at the Titans. I know their draft capital is interesting here, but they do have Cam Ward. I think I like their coaching combination of hires. They can do things to help their offense and defense. So that's a team I'm looking at. The other team that you have to look at are the Giants, right? They kind of are a little flexible here with their needs. I know offensive line and wide receiver are some needs for them, but their defense has a good foundation. If they go after the secondary or get some offensive line help early, I don't think they have to force any position there. So they're in good shape. I don't think you necessarily have to have the 2 picks. I think with the Jets and Browns, I think the question is, do they take a shot on that second first rounder on a Ty Simpson or Garrett Nussmeier? Just take a flyer, say we need to take a shot at quarterback. So that's going to be interesting. But we know they can't miss the first player either, because look, the Jets and Browns have a variety of needs they got to fill, and they got to hit on those picks and can't afford to waste any.
Vinny, we got about 20 seconds. The Patriots, again, viewed as having had a fluky run to the Super Bowl, so they're not high on the odds board in terms of championship futures for next year. The defending champion, Seattle Seahawks, are at the top at plus 750, followed by the Rams, the Ravens, the Bills, Packers, Chargers, Eagles, in that order. Where would you sprinkle some cash?
I would go off the board and go to Kansas City. That's all I'm going to say. You always look at the Chiefs, and you can never
keep an eye on that Tyreek Hill reunion. I'm telling you, now that he's out, Vinny Iyer, Sporting News. Thank you, sir.